Hey everybody, it's Beth. Today I'm using this pumpkin shelf sitter I got from Dollar Tree. I start by separating the two pumpkins. I remove the twine piece from the larger pumpkin and then trace that out on some textured scrapbook paper that I got from Hobby Lobby. And then I use some wire cutters to cut those little pins that are sticking out of the piece that connected the two. I then hold the scrapbook paper on top of that and just make markings where the four corners are. Cut a slit in the center of those and then diagonally cut those pieces and then cut those little triangle sections out and fit it over the piece that connected the two pumpkins and then trim it up as needed. Once I make sure that it fits fine, I flip it over and trace out the stem and then cut that down and added Mod Podge to the pumpkin and smooth that out, making sure that it was completely covered, and then place down the scrapbook paper, smoothed it out with my hands at first, and then use my heating tool to dry it and make sure it was fully attached. And then sanded down any excess paper, and then painted the entire pumpkin front and back with ivory colored chalk paint, and that's by Waverly. Now I know it's already white, but it was kind of shiny paper, so I wanted it to be more of a dull look. And then I touched up the edges of that piece that separated the two pumpkins with that same paint. The smaller pumpkin I sprayed with some water, placed down a paper towel and sprayed that, making sure it was fully covered. Let that sit for about 10 minutes and then sanded and used my plastic scraper to remove that paper, sanded it down. Once that was dry, I painted the entire thing with Terra Cotta acrylic paint by Folkart. And then I'm taking this stencil I got from Amazon and spraying the back of it with Pixie spray. That's also from Amazon. And I have to do this in different sections. I place down the area that I want to cover first and stencil on that ivory colored chalk paint using a stencil brush and very minimal paint. So I do have to do 2 coats when stenciling on. Remove the stencil, make sure it's completely dry, and I do clean the stencil in between. And then just move the stencil around until I have it covered how I like. I then go back through with the terracotta paint and just touch up any spots that got smudged or had paint left over from the stencil. I then take some raffia and make a bow out of that, just wrapping it back and forth in loops. Take some twine and tie that nice and tight in the center of those loops. Cut off the excess twine and the longer pieces of raffia. And then take another piece of raffia and wrap it around the center a few times to cover that twine so it all matches. And tie that in a knot and cut the excess off. I scrunch up the ends of the loops and then hot glue that to the top of the white pumpkin. I then add some hot glue and connect the two pumpkins back together. And that is it for this project. Thank you so much for watching.